Namaskar and welcome once again to Dialogus. You're watching Worldview and I'm Vishal Dahiya. Today we're going to talk about President Trump and his Middle East policy. Now, US President Donald Trump recently visited several countries in the Middle East this week, which is considered to be his first major overseas trip in the second term. Apart from meeting the leaders of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates and Qatar, President Trump, true to his style and also in line with his style of governance, also threw in an element of surprise by holding a one-on-one with the interim president of Syria, Ahmed al-Shara, the same Shara who was till recently on the most wanted list of United States counter-terror agencies. Trump also announced easing of US sanctions against Syria and sealed several deals with Saudi Arabia, Qatar and UAE. So what exactly is President Trump's Middle East game plan? What are the key aspects of his Middle East policy in the second term, and how will it influence the geopolitics of the region and the rest of the world as well? For a detailed discussion on this and a little more on these aspects, we're joined by two distinguished experts today. Professor A.K.Pasha, former professor with the Center of West Asian Studies in the JNU, and former Ambassador Niraj Srivastava also is joining us, who spent almost 10 years in Syria, Saudi Arabia and Libya during his diplomatic career. Welcome both of you gentlemen to the Worldview. I'll begin with you, Ambassador Srivastava, and we can talk about the larger aspect as well, but let's first pick up the most interesting element which everybody around the world is talking about during this visit of President Trump to these countries, is his meeting, one-on-one meeting, which lasted for almost 37 minutes with the interim Syrian president, Shara, Ahmed al-Shara. What prompted or what might have prompted this U-turn, easing of sanctions and then meeting the interim president as well? What is it that President Trump is trying to do with these actions vis-a-vis Syria?
Well, what he is trying to do is that he is trying to put in place a puppet who will run Syria according to his instructions. This puppet has replaced Bashar al-Assad, who was the president of Syria for almost more than 14 years, and who is a homegrown Syrian. So, first of all, let me say one thing to begin with, because that's important. Let me clarify that the West Asia or Middle East policy of the United States is largely determined by Israel and the Jewish lobby in the US. Mm-hmm. And they were not happy with Bashar al-Assad because he was an independent person. He was not the puppet. He didn't listen to them. So the US, along with Turkey and some Gulf countries, organized a civil war-like situation in Syria some 13, 14 years ago. And after a huge amount of death and destruction over this period, they have managed to put Mr. Shara in the seat. Of course, this gentleman had a bounty of US dollars 10 million on his head, and one of the most hardcore terrorists. So people are asking this question, that how can a terrorist with a bounty on his head overnight turn into a civilian president of a country as large and as complex as Syria? So his own credibility is practically non-existent, because he has not been elected by the Syrian people. He has been put there by Turkey, United States, and Israel. And if you see what Israel has done after Mr. Shara became president, Israel has occupied some more territory in southern Syria, including, of course, Golan Heights it's always had, but it has occupied even more territory in southern Syria, and it has bombed Syria extensively. All its weapons depots all its security installations, so that Syria is now, virtually defenseless against Israel. So this is what Mr. Shara has been told to do. And of course, now the sanctions will be lifted because they have their man in place, and they can play with the destiny of Syria whichever way they want. And Turkey's President Erdogan, who fancies himself as a pasha or a sultan, who he and who's already occupied parts of northern Syria and
Mhm.
also Idlib. These are the people who will decide.
Okay.
And yeah, and from Russia tried to defend Syria ruled by Assad for many years. But lately Russia has been itself busy in Ukraine, so it could not continue its operations in Syria.
Okay, Professor Pasha, your views on this aspect of Trump's Middle East policy, or West Asia as we call it, that particular region. Specifically, now that we're talking about Syria, its interim president, who was once a wanted terrorist by United States with a huge bounty on his head. But things seem to have turned entirely. The same man is now sitting in a room with the United States president. The sanctions are being lifted, and the overall politics of the region, seemingly, as Ambassador Srivastava is pointing out, is moving. Do you agree? Is moving on the lines as the United States wants it to move?
Well, apparently, it looks like the Americans are pushing hard leaders, countries in the direction they want. But you see, the regional and local dynamics has its own spin. For example, the fact that Syria's leader al-Shara met Trump in Riyadh, and he was invited by the Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. It's significant because Saudi Arabia is contesting Turkish influence in Syria. And the amount of money promised by Saudi Arabia doesn't in any way match to what Turkey can put on the ground. So through this lifting of sanctions and through cultivating al-Shara and promising him bounty for reconstruction and putting Syrian infrastructure back in shape, the Saudis want to reshape the politics and power structure in Syria in their favor.
Okay.
Which is ultimately in consonance with what United States wants, and also Israel, because we should not forget that you see, behind the scene, since the port of Riyadh has been under constant attack by the Houthis of Yemen, the Saudis through the UAE and Jordan have been a lifeline for Israel. And the fact that Saudis could not do much on Gaza because they had put several conditions, but none of them have been achieved, and Israel has had its way. So what is emerging in Syria is a struggle for power between Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Israel and America. They want to wean away from Turkish growing influence in Syria. Other than this, the larger plank of Trump's visit, there are two subsets. One is, of course, Trump is a businessman, and as you have seen, the several deals for arms sales, investment, technology transfer, Boeing deal, so on and so forth, amounting to more than $3 trillion from all these.
Indeed.
Excuse me, three countries. So trade, investment, and business is an important plank. The other not so much revealed agenda is Trump's statement and warning to Iran that if there is no deal through diplomacy on the nuclear issue, Iran will have to face the consequences of war.
Mhm.
So, in any likelihood of war, whether it is jointly Israeli, US, or otherwise, the cooperation of these three countries is very essential
Very vital.
against Iran. And these three countries and the others in the GCC are paranoid about Iranian military capability, both conventional and probable nuclear ambitions.
Okay.
And secondly, Iran's axis of resistance of their support to Popular Mobilization Front in Iraq, then Hezbollah, then the Houthis, and of course the Hamas.
Okay.
So
Well,
these three factors are important in the US president's visit to Gulf.
Okay, wonderful. You've summarized rather the theory or practical approach which President Trump had to deploy during this particular visit, the three aspects which you spoke about. Let's take them one by one. And Ambassador Srivastava, I'll start with Saudi Arabia because that's where Professor Pasha was also indicating. When we look at Saudi Arabia, it's not just about the fact that Syria's interim president Al-Shara was invited by Saudi Arabia, but also for a significant period now, Saudi Arabia has been trying to extract its own pound of flesh, for its relationship with United States in the form of some sort of guarantees on Palestine, on Gaza, something which has not been happening, something which doesn't look like it's going to happen because Israel's offensive is very, very aggressive in those areas. So, do you think there is some sort of meeting ground which can be brought about, or have during this particular visit, have these leaders able to come to a common ground?
Let me begin by saying that Saudi Arabia was one of the countries in the coalition led by US and Turkey, which is responsible for the destruction of Syria. So Saudi Arabia, if it gives a few $1 billion to Syria reconstruction aid, will not be doing it any favor because they have caused more destruction than several $1 billion. The only meeting ground that I see is that the Americans will ask Mohammed bin Salman to pay for the reconstruction of Syria, and in return, they will give some assurances to Saudi Arabia about both Iran and Israel. Israel definitely, but Iran, I'm not sure, because Iran is not really a puppet regime of anybody. Iran is an independent country, part of Axis of Resistance, and Iran will do what is in its own national interests. Also, I mean, clearly one more point to be highlighted is that Iran is a Shia country and Saudi Arabia is the leader of the Sunni countries, Sunni population in the world.
So those are also very significant and distinct fault lines in the Middle East or West Asia.
Yeah, they're absolutely important fault lines. And, the one fault line which the United States and Israel have not yet been able to crack open is the fault line which runs through Iran. And that is because they know that Iran has developed mostly by itself advanced missile technology and is also close to putting together a nuclear weapon if required. You might recall that some months ago, when Iran sent a whole swarm of drones to, to Israel, and also directed some missiles, hypersonic missiles, towards Israel. Those missiles found their target. Israel, Israel's so-called Iron Dome cannot stop Iran's hypersonic missiles. It is for that reason that Israel has an existential fear of Iran. And it is for this reason that Israel wants the United States to attack Iran. But Mr. Trump basically does not want wars. He's one of those rare presidents who don't want wars.
He's into the business of trade.
He's into trade. He's a billionaire and he knows that there are better ways of making money than war. So he is reluctant. Now, we have to just wait and see if Mr. Netanyahu is able to, orchestrate a war between Iran and the United States. And if it does, the outcome may not be particularly good for Israel. Israel is overreaching. After committing genocide in Gaza, it is now trying to commit genocide in other parts of the Arab world, like Iran, for example. So you know what Israel has done to the Gaza Strip. It's committed genocide, killed millions of people. They want to do the same thing to Iran. But Mr. Trump is not in favor of doing the same thing to Iran because he knows that the outcome may be Israel's own destruction.
Okay, so tussle between friends and allies out here, between Israel and United States as well, to try and find out a way of dealing with Iran there. And Israel, of course, would not settle for anything less than ensuring that its question of its existential crisis is dealt with permanently. That point apart, and of course, because Israel and Palestine and Gaza, all these are significantly important when we talk about West Asia and Middle East. But let me, Professor Pasha, let me take you to another country here, where President Trump was during this particular visit. And again, a very controversial and very interesting aspect coming out, that is Qatar. The Qatari Amir gifting a multi-million billionaire plane to United States President, something which has been a talk of the town. But in addition to that, what is important here is that Qatar's influence in US domestic politics and its foreign policy formulation seemingly has increased very significantly, very exponentially in the past few years. Qatar has put in a lot of money to ensure that it has a voice in the United States. That's one part. But on the second hand, we are talking about excess of resistance and all. Qatar has openly supported some of these elements like Hamas.
Yes, indeed. There's no doubt about it. Substantial financial aid to Hamas in the name of reconstruction and payment of salaries to civil servants in Gaza went on through the Israeli government for over a decade. There's no doubt about it. The amount of money channeled is all recorded, well known to the Israelis, to the Americans, and to the Palestinian Authority also. But you see, Qatar has been punching above its weight, about beyond its size and sometimes capacity. Whether it is through the Al Jazeera TV network or through the mediation between Hamas and Israel, or in its intervention in Syria or other hotspots, all of these things. So Qatar not only has allowed the Americans to have the largest airbase, the Al Udeid airbase, where President Trump visited yesterday, and Qataris have promised another 400 to plus billion dollars to expand, which oversees Central Asia, entire West Asia, East Africa, South Asia, and the Indian Ocean northern part. All of it is under the central command. So this is extremely important for any campaign against Russia, southern parts of Russia, or even China to a certain extent. So that is the hub of, including Iran, if they want to take any action. So Qatar is extremely important, not only from the strategic point of view, but also from the investment point of view. Qatar's investment, now they have promised over $1 trillion, but already they have invested more than 2 trillion. If you see the range of areas they have invested over the last, particularly over the last 25 years, the present Amir and his father, who overthrew his father in 95 June, they have virtually seen United States as the garden for investment, and they have reaped huge benefits. So their clout is not just in investment, but also universities, research institutes, think tanks, the press. They have bought influence through lobbies like what the Israelis have in the United States, only to a limited scale, not to the same scale as AIPAC and the Jewish lobby. But still, among all the Arab countries, it is the Qataris who have a substantial voice, which will speak for them in various platforms in America.
In United States, yeah.
Yeah, United States.
Of course. So
States also uses Qatar for mediation with the Russians, like other GCC countries. So the Qataris have played a very important role, as you know, in Taliban. US talks, the Taliban have an office there. We also interacted through the Qataris with the Taliban there. And day before yesterday, Mr. Rabbani met Trump for the second time in Doha. And the Qatari Amir was here, and the Prime Minister personally went to receive him at the airport. And also the Qataris apparently gave bribes to Netanyahu also, which has landed him in trouble in the court cases. So they are trying to build influence from India to Russia to Israel, through America, around the world, through their money, investment, and Al Jazeera and their diplomacy.
Oh, okay. Ambassador Srivastava, as very beautifully explained by Professor Pasha, when we talk about Qatar, I want to understand, is it just diplomacy, or is it a huge dichotomy, Israel and United States, both allies, Israel locked in a perennial battle with Hamas and other elements in Palestine or Gaza. Hamas being supported by Qatar. United States has its biggest base in the Middle East in Qatar only. Qatar has a huge influence in United States. Qatar has also, as Professor Pasha is saying, has funneled money to allegedly Prime Minister of Israel, that is Netanyahu. Is Qatar the key element in overall Middle East when we are talking about the diplomatic efforts, or understanding the complexities of the region and perhaps trying to figure a way out also?
Yes. First, let me say a few words about the source of Qatar's power. The source of Qatar's power is that it has one of the largest natural gas fields in the world, part of it which it shares with Iran. Qatar itself is a very small country with a very small population, but the amount of revenue which they generate through the sale of this liquefied natural gas runs into trillions of dollars. The second source of Qatar's power is that it hosts the biggest American air base, military base in the Gulf, the Al Udeid Air Base, which has more than 10,000 American soldiers and literally hundreds of fighter aircraft, is in Qatar.
Okay.
Now, how does this give security to Qatar? It gives security to Qatar in the sense that all these bases are within missile range of Iranian missiles. You know, if Iran is hit by Israel or America, one of the first thing it will do is that it will try to destroy Al Udeid. So this, you can call it protection money. You know, uh, Qatar pays protection money to the United States in the form of territory, you know, giving it land for the base, even while it is a very small country, a tiny dot, you know. So it punches above its weight mainly because of its money, because of its close links with the United States, because of its backing of the Muslim Brotherhood, which it shares with both Turkey and Egypt. They all support Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas also, you know, supports Muslim Brotherhood. And they have spent hundreds of millions of dollars in hiring American lobbying firms and
Okay.
giving money to American think tanks, which have produced reports favorable to Qatar. You know, so which have reports which they can sell to the Americans can sell to their own people that look, Qatar is a very moderate country. Don't think it is, any providing any assistance to extremism. The
Okay.
fact but the fact of the matter is that Qatar was one of the most important members of the coalition which overthrew Assad. So it has blood on its hands also.
Okay, so a very complex situation here, and of course, everybody is trying to fend for itself in the Middle Eastern region. There, very interesting aspects coming out, Mr. Srivastava and Professor Pasha as well. But before we conclude the discussion, Professor Pasha, a quick comment on UAE as well. That's also a very important element. And when we talk about UAE and the recent, visit by President Trump. The focus was more on technology, AI, and all that. Seemingly, UAE has its, design and the task cut out.
Yes, of course. You see, among all the GCC countries or other than Israel, among the Arab countries, the UAE has been forging rapidly in the field of high-end technology, and the kind of firms and projects they have, ranging from space. They had sent UAE national as an astronaut in the space and have launched satellites. They have the South Koreans, with the help of South Koreans, they have a nuclear plant there.
Please.
And AI, in the field of AI with China and with other countries, they have built up an excellent infrastructure and comparable to any advanced country. So they are aiming for very high role in the coming years as far as science, technology, space, nuclear energy, and other technological innovations.
Okay.
And at the same time, you see, like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, UAE also is in the struggle for power and influence in this region. It also got involved in the overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya, in the overthrow of Syria against Assad, and in dividing Yemen, part of it through its militia they control, including the Sokotra Island, which is being developed with Israeli help. And now in Sudan, they are playing a very active role in supporting the Rapid Action Force against the military, Sudan's military.
Okay.
So in Somalia, in Sudan, in Yemen, in Syria, in Libya, in Gaza, in Lebanon, they have been very active. And they were also active with Saudi Arabia in blockading Qatar last time when Trump was president. This his first visit to Riyadh in first year of his first term. Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt boycotted Qatar. And it was the Americans who intervened to help, plus Turkey and India and Iran, which helped in a big way, plus Oman.
Okay.
So UAE, at one stage, Saudi Arabia was planning to invade Qatar to occupy its gas fields because Saudi Arabia feels half of the tribes in Qatar belong to its tribal lineage on the other side of the divide between Qatar and Saudi Arabia. So, and they also accused Qatari leadership of sponsoring and supporting terrorism, especially this Ikhwan al-Muslimin, which is a link between Turkey and Qatar, but not with Egypt. Egypt has suppressed the Ikhwan al-Muslimin. So UAE, even though it has close relations with Iran, but at the same time, it is afraid of Iran because it occupies 3 of the islands which UAE claims in the Gulf, Abu Musa, Greater and Lesser Thums. So there is struggle between Iran and UAE and Iran and Qatar, UAE and Qatar, and also
everyone
between Saudi Arabia and UAE in Yemen.
Okay.
So UAE is trying to project itself as the most important player in competition with Qatar and Saudi Arabia. And that is how, Indian government, which has strategic relations with UAE, is silent on some of the interventions UAE has made, although it has affected the security and stability and caused problems for our foreign policy also.
Well, ultimately, we have to look at our own interests, just like every other country is looking for its own interests. But as you both gentlemen are pointing out, Professor Pasha and Mr. Srivastava, the complexities of the overall Middle Eastern region, or the West Asia as we call it, every player, every country for themselves, they have something to hide, but they have something to gain. They have a very transactional relationship with each other and with, of course, other Western countries and other Asian countries as well, including India. They are a very complex situation, but as both our experts pointed out, that there might be more twists and turns around the corner when we take a closer look at the developments in Middle East or West Asia out there. Thank you so much once again, Professor Pasha and Mr. Srivastava also, for joining us and sharing with us the detailed analysis and interpretation of the facts, and also bringing out some very interesting contradictory things which are happening in Middle East region. We'll come back again with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Worldview and Dialoguers. Thank you.